Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. Our good friends at AutoGlanz have released a new wax making homebrew kit that's looking to take the whole process into the 21st century with some quite sophisticated additives in there. So the AutoGlanz Homebrew kit costs around $49.95. What do you get for your money? You get 5 different types of waxes, 100 grams of each. Carnauba, beeswax, candelia, paraffin and microcrystalline. So your carnauba is the hard concrete wax which gives you durability when you're doing these waxes and a nice amount of gloss, okay? It's a really rock solid hard wax, and those other waxes are blended in with it to make it more workable, okay? Beeswax, still a relatively hard wax, okay, but a lot softer than the carnauba. It breaks the carnauba down, makes it more kind of less grainy and softer when you have that beeswax in there. It's also nice and glossy, nice and hydrophobic, more hydrophobic than the carnauba. But its main thing is to soften the overall blend. In a similar way, candelia is like that, like the beeswax. It will smooth the blend out and use it in a similar way. It's also a lovely glossy wax, okay, and it helps make the wax easier to apply. And then you have your two, I think they're both carbon derivative. I think the paraffin wax, great repellency characteristics, water repellency, all that sort of stuff, and protection. And the microcrystalline wax is similar, but I think it's an isoparaffin version of it. It's much denser, okay? So it's kind of tougher, but again, it's in there for its protective qualities as well as the gloss. So those are the 5 waxes you get. You get 500 milliliters of our Link solvent blend, okay? So it's a complex blend, it's not just a single solvent, it's a low aromatic petroleum distillate, okay? Which is, if you're putting scents in your wax, you have to use these low aromatics, they're slightly more expensive. The key characteristics of the Link blend over a single solvent will be you get a combination of a medium or heavier kind of petroleum distillate or solvent with a lighter one, which can give you different, the lighter one will kind of vaporize quicker, so you can get a kind of cure going on a little bit faster when the product's applied to get it to kind of bed down a bit more without it all sort of, if you had too much light solvent, it flash away too quickly, so that the solvent blends themselves can be complicated, but AutoGlanz have done the kind of work there for you, so you've got a very suitable solvent for you blend to use with this wax making. So the first complex additive carrier is called VOC-free additive, okay? It's a little bit vague, but it's telling you it's not a volatile organic component, so it's relatively safe. You get 250 milliliters of it. The way I can describe this is it's a sophisticated carrier, okay? So it also acts like a solvent in some ways, but it leaves behind a component in there to help with slickness and surface characteristics and gloss, okay? So think of it as a synthetic carrier, basically. The next component is 50 milliliters of volatile liquid, which is supposed to add slip to the overall kind of product, okay? It also has cross-linking qualities according to Joe, so it's quite a specific chemical, and the ins and outs of what's in there are the stuff that you're not going to get to find out about, because that's kind of blowing the lid off it too much, okay? The final thing is 50 milliliters of durability polymer. So this is a synthetic polymer kind of chain which is in the wax to provide durability. That's a key thing with these wax products when you're trying to make them at home. The hardest thing is trying to put durability into these products without making the wax unusable, okay? So 50 milliliters of liquid durability polymer. Also within the kit you get 50 milliliters of fragrance oil that goes into the blend. You get 5 grams of powdered dye, you get a measuring syringe, you get 350 milliliter wax tins, and you get a 50 milliliter plastic tin, okay? All of those ingredients make enough to make about between 500 and 600 millilitres of wax, okay, which is about three and a half. I managed to squeeze them all in with a tiny little bit of wastage, so I made 450. I could have made a little bit more if I'd pushed the boundary. That's quite a lot of wax to make for 50 quid. You know, when you're considering you're getting all this other stuff as well. So that is what the kit compromises of. One very important thing is all of the components that are in this wax kit are available individually. A note on safety, okay? AutoGlanz have got on their website instructions for all of this, a very good set of instructions, which I will of course link in, but I want to go through some of the safety things. The first things, do not melt your waxes on naked flames, okay? So if you've got a gas hob inside, do not use it for this, okay? I will say to you, I've got a Hotplate Stirrer here, which you can pick up for a couple of £100. They start at around 200 quid. It's a digital one, or is it an analog one? It's a digital one, I think, can't remember. But it's got the temperature probe, it's got the magnetic stirrer, and some electronic features which make it great for making waxes. Okay, that's quite a lot of money. You can pick up these little electric wax star things, which is what I started off and used them back in the homebrew videos. They're really good. I think they're 12 or 14 pounds. I'll put a link for those in. If you're going to buy them, my tip is buy two, because you've got two liquids here that you need to manage the temperature of, okay? Do not use naked flames. You are much better off doing this in your garage on either a Hotplate Stirrer or one of these electric wax melters. You can do this on an electric hob indoors. You need suitable ventilation. If you've got like an extractor hob, that will work, but you want good airflow going through there, okay? This is getting into the territory of lab stuff, and obviously a kitchen isn't ideal, but if you're sensible, you could make this in your kitchen, okay? But do not use naked flames to heat any of these substances. That is the most important thing for obvious reasons. You're dealing with flammable solvents and stuff like this, guys, so you know, you cannot take this anywhere near a naked flame. The next thing is you are melting wax to near 100 degrees Celsius, okay? And at that temperature, if it splashes or you tip it on your arm or any part of you, it goes in your face, okay, you are going to burn yourself, you're going to scald yourself, that wax will stick to you and it will burn. That is very important. Handle hot liquids with care, especially the waxes. Fourth point on safety, ventilation, okay? I've got my door open when I'm cooking these. I've got the garage back door open and I've got massive airflow coming through, because the vapours that come off of solvents and things like that are harmful. You need to use it in a well ventilated area, very important. The last thing is appropriate safety clothing. You want to get yourself a cheap set of lab goggles, okay? Then they cost a couple of quid. I've got some over there. In case any of it splashes up in your face, it won't go in your eyes. Respirator mask is definitely handy. For me, I had the Mickey Mouse one, which isn't good. You want a proper one that's going to filter the air, okay? They're going to be a little bit more expensive, 10 or 20 quid. You want to invest in that. And in combination of that, make sure the area is well ventilated. It's quite windy today. I had a massive airflow down here and I'm shooting. So you'll see a lot of shots of me not wearing the mask, okay? But wear it and make sure you have one. I've mentioned plastic gloves as well, just to keep these chemicals off your hands, you know, because they can cause irritation. So plastic gloves as well, very important. Okay, I want to run through the list of the equipment additional to what comes in the kit that you're going to need. You need to get yourself some scales, okay? Here's a good little tip. I'll put a link for this in the description. It's a scale which measures accurate to a gram, I think. And it measures a maximum of 100 grams. So there are a couple of things in this kit that are over 100 grams. So you could measure one up at 50 and one up at 67 if you needed to get 117, for example. So this will just about do, and it costs £4, okay? The Rad Mini scales, probably used by all cannabis dealers up and down the country as well. So some of you might already have one of these. Next thing, a stirring device, okay? The glass rod stirrers, cheap on eBay. I'll try and find you a link in the description. You can use a metal spoon. These are much better as well. They don't affect the temperature as much, and they're just easier to stir into a beaker with them. So glass rod stirrer. Next thing is the lab beakers for heating these products. I'd recommend you go and get two 500ml lab beakers, okay? I had a 500ml one and a 3000ml one, I think. The 3000 one, it was actually that worked well. You could do that. I have the big one if I'm making a lot of wax, but I don't tend to make that much, you know, that volume, but it's there if I need to. So 2 beakers that are at least 500 ml size, and our lab beakers you can heat up. So Pyrex, you know, glass is the typical one. I'll try and find you a link and put it in the description. They're not expensive, guys. Next up, the procedure for making this stuff. So once you've weighed your waxes out into one jar, so you've got a blend of all these unmelted waxes, and you've weighed your liquid additives in the other jar, you're ready to start heating them. So the next step is to heat our products. We've got 1 jar of unmelted waxes all mixed together, and we've got another jar with all the chemical liquid additives in there, okay? So we're going to heat the wax first. So we put this wax on our hot plate, or we put it into our wax melter, or we melt it in our saucepan if we like, if we're doing this on an electric hob inside. And then this wax now needs to, when it starts to get beyond sort of 60 degrees, it's going to start melting. Even before that, some of the softer waxes will start to melt down. So you'll get a layer on the bottom of liquid wax, and then the unmelted wax is on top. And it's important to keep stirring it so you don't form a crust where you sort of overheat the waxes at the bottom and it gets molten hot, but it's trapped, the temperature gets trapped in. So keep stirring the waxes with your glass rod or your spoon. When it starts getting, and keep taking temperature readings as well, okay? You know, when it starts melting down. When you get up to about 75 degrees, the carnauba will start melting. The instructions say to heat your wax blend up to 95 degrees. So at that sort of temperature, you should have this kind of loose liquid at that point. You're very hot at 95 degrees, so of course be careful, okay? When the wax gets to 95 degrees, we take it off the heat, being careful touching the hot beaker, and we put it on top of our microfiber pad. We sit it down, put the temperature probe in there, and just keep an eye on it, because it's going to start cooling down now. When it starts getting below 60, it will start solidifying, and you'll see the top go and around the edges start to solidify, okay? So we want to ideally get our other liquid beaker up to temperature before that wax is cooled below 60. So we put our liquid blend on there of solvents and all those special carriers and polymers and all that sort of stuff, and we heat this up to 60 degrees. So I can set the temperature on this to 60 and watch it slowly rise. If you're doing this bit in the wax electric, you know, tub, or you're doing it on the saucepan, be very careful to not overheat these polymers, okay? They'll go blobby and stringy if they're anything like the ones that I've used before. So do not overheat these. It says heat them up to 60 degrees, okay? And then when that liquid blend is up to 60 degrees, you are then ready to mix the 2 components together. Now this is one of the things I mentioned to Joe that you need to be careful of, because you've got one beaker full of wax that's cooling, and you've got another beaker full of your liquid products being raised, and then when they both get to the right temperatures, you've got to put them together. You do not want to get your liquid additives too hot, and you do not want to get your wax blend too cold, okay? So they say you want your beaker at 60 degrees with your liquids, and your wax at around 70 to 80, okay? So if you can get that up to 60 quickly before the wax cools, you'll get about 10 minutes to do that before you probably start dropping below 70. Anyway, you blend the 2 together. So I put my wax into the bigger beaker with all the additives. Now put that back on the hot plate, so you can put that back on the hob, and then you want to heat and blend this together, okay? So stir it well. You do not want to take the temperature over 80. Ideally, if you can keep the temperature around sort of 75, something like that, blend it all together till you've got one sort of smooth mix, and you can't see any lumps of wax that might have formed from the cooling of the other wax. Then when you've got a nice smooth blend and you haven't exceeded 80 degrees, you can turn the heat off you can turn your hob off or whatever, take the beaker off, put it on the microfiber, put the thermostat, the temperature gauge into it, and let it cool down to somewhere between 60 to 70 degrees, okay? Closer to 60, I'd say. The lower you can get it before it starts to solidify, the better. You know, a low temperature pour is good. And then at that stage, you simply pour your product into your wax tins, okay? Now you can prime your wax tins first, pour a tiny bit in there and rub it round so that wax kind of covers the covers the base, which is a good technique. It can avoid the wax kind of separating from the tin. It shouldn't do that anyway, but if you're doing a hard wax, it can. So you could prime your tins if you like. You could also do staggered pours, so you could pour a little bit in after you've primed it and that's solidified, just a thin layer, and then when that's cooled you put another layer on, and that stops the wax collapsing in the middle, okay? But you could also just pour your wax into the jar. You will get a little bit of collapsing if you do that, but hardly any, and it doesn't affect the usage of the wax. You know, it's just a little divot in the middle that you'll see, and it will be pretty small. The tins are more prone to doing that as well because they absorb some of the heat and they make the outside of the wax cool quicker than the inside. So it's nothing really to worry about. Those are some things that you kind of, the more you do it, little things you kind of pick up along the way that just make the wax look nicer. Ideally, you're looking for that kind of ice rink surface on top where it looks really nice. So when someone's opening it, they can be kind of impressed with how the wax has been produced. Once you've poured the wax into your containers, leave them well alone, okay? So that's molten hot wax. Don't touch it, don't prod it, don't poke it. You know, don't get the wax on your finger or anything like that. Just leave it well alone and it will just slowly cool, okay? And then, you know, if you've got good airflow through there, it'll cool a bit quicker. In about an hour's time, it would have solidified enough to put the lids on the wax, okay? And then you can leave them for 24 hours and after that, they'll be ready for use. So right at this moment in time, it's been about 4 or 5 hours since I've poured these, and they're completely cool now, and I can show you the wax. So it's now the next day and my wax is fully cured, no problems with it. It's hardened up a little bit since yesterday as well, which is nice. So it's about the right consistency, this wax, nice and slippy. I've had to play around with it. I've slapped it on a test panel, testing it, you know, see how long it lasts on the panel and how it comes off, what happens if you over cure it or under cure it, you know, and benchmark it next to other wax products that I like. And that's the sort of things that you do when you kind of make these, as well as putting it on your car as well and living with the wax. So we'll be playing around with this, and I want to you know, do some more brews and kind of play around with some of these additives and see how much more I can push the boundaries, especially with that durability polymer. So I want to kind of round this up with my thoughts on this kit as always. You know, I just try and put it all down there about exactly what I think. So I'm in a good position to make wax at home. You know, I've done it on the channel and shot a lot of videos of some of the waxes that I've messed around with in the past year. And I'm still learning about it, you know. My waxes aren't quite as good as my favourite kind of waxes that you buy from the other companies. I haven't managed to beat my favourite waxes yet, which is what I'm always trying to do, although I've got some methods of putting durability into them and hydrophobicity with some of the speciality chemicals. So I was really interested in the speciality chemicals that are used in this kind of AutoGlanz kit, and that's what I'm going to try and focus the next few brews on, is try and understand them more. I can say they're definitely putting a lot of slip in there. That this VOC-free additive that Joe was telling me about really makes the wax nice and slippery. A lot, you know, you can feel some waxes that you buy are quite dry by comparison, you know, because all waxes are going to be slidey, but this really is slippery, which is nice, okay, especially when you're applying it. What do I think about the kit overall? So the first thing is the price, okay, 49, let's just say 50 quid for the homebrew kit, okay? That's a good price. The first thing about this kit is, as it comes, you could probably make about 540, something like that, 540 grams of wax, which is going to be 3 good sized tin and a little plastic tub as well. So you could make 4 tubs of wax, okay? The first thing is, the ingredient that you run out of is the VOC-free liquid, and by following the sample formula that AutoGlanz have provided, it's worth mentioning they're going to be doing lots of other sort of sample formulations on their website and the AutoGlanz page, where you can go and talk about your homebrew and what ingredients you're using and chat with the other guys that are doing it and try stuff. But the first thing you'll run out of is the VOC-free liquid, okay? So you can go and buy some more of that. With 1 extra bottle of this, you could actually make 1,000 grams of wax. Okay, so I suggest, this is all hot off the press, this thing, okay? There's 2 suggestions I made to Joe is you know, can he sell Montan wax as well? Because that's something that people would want to experiment with. It give you nice results in terms of the gloss, and that's probably going to come along in the pipeline soon. So you're maybe not in the kit, but on all the individual ingredients on the homebrew section of the AutoGlanz page, which I'll link in, you might see Montan wax appear there over the next month or so. Is it too advanced and too complicated? Okay, I've got to be careful because I've done a fair amount of this wax brewing, so my gut reaction to answering that question is no, it's not. It's actually quite straightforward. The instructions are very good. So if you follow the instructions on how to do it, I don't think there's too much that can go wrong. There's not much that can go wrong when you're melting your waxes. Make sure you measure them out correctly. So you should be able to melt your waxes down. When you're heating your polymers, the biggest thing is you could overheat them, so just be mindful of that and don't overheat your polymers. It's the sole thing you're going to be doing when you're blending them. So the one thing to pay attention to is not taking them over 80 degrees and keeping them, blending them between 60 and 70, you know, is ideal as they suggest. Well, they actually say heat them up to 60, okay? But then when you pour the wax in at 60, you need to raise it a little bit. So when you're doing that part as well, do not raise it beyond 75 or 80 like they suggest, or else that you can kind of, you know, you can mess up the polymers a little bit. So that's the main complexity, is managing temperatures. And I said to Joe, you're going to take your wax blend off the heat and put it onto the microfiber. It's going to be dropping in temperature, and then you're going to be putting your liquid beaker on there and raising the temperature of that, and you hope that the two meet somewhere in the middle at the point where you've got to blend them. They do typically, and like I say, the main thing is not overheating the liquid blends, and when you mix them together you'll get a little bit of drop of temperature because the liquid is cooler than the wax, where the wax sort of come down, so they might be roughly the same. And then the key thing is to blend that for about 10 minutes to get it back up to temperature around 70 to 75, where you know the carnauba is going to be, which is probably the hardest wax to melt of all of these, where that is going to be melting and blending, and give it a good blend for 10 minutes. And then once you've done that, you take it off the heat, bring it down in temperature till you get to close to 60 degrees, and then you pour. So not much can go wrong. You know, whenever you're doing lab stuff, you've got to be careful about tipping things over. Always put your tops back on the bottles. Make sure you've got a bit of space and you're organised. Follow the health and safety precautions, and do follow them, okay? I'm not just saying that as a disclaimer. Follow them. They're there for your safety. You will have seen me take the gloves off at some point because the gloves got kind of chemicals on them, and I'm trying to stop and start the camera as I'm making this, and I do not want to be getting solvents all over my camera, so I took the gloves off, and filming this and doing this at the same time is challenging, I can tell you, but it is not that difficult to make, and it is good fun, okay? So once you've done your first brew, you'll learn lots of little things yourself doing this about how, you know, procedural stuff and just methods of working, and the more and more you do, you know, you get quicker. Making your own wax is a little bit of an addiction, okay? Once you start doing it, you really get into it, and you will spend hours and hours scouring the internet looking for additives, and you will potentially spend, you know, hundreds if not thousands of pounds. You'll quite easily, you can get into the thousands of pounds buying stuff and trying stuff, some of which is completely unsuitable because, you know, you're trying stuff. I've bought products that are just wrong, you know, and were never going to work in a wax blend, and that was back at the early days now, and I'm at a level where I've got a lot of ingredients which can deliver me what I want, okay? But it's taken me the best part of 18 months to get to where I am now. Where I am now is not as advanced as what this homebrew kit can deliver you, okay? So this kit is kind of accelerating you into the advanced stages of wax making. And one thing that I might have said earlier on that I think is really important, you can buy this kit, just use the wax and the solvent and go and buy some carrier oils and just play around, you know, before you go into the advanced wax making using the using all these synthetic specialty chemicals that are included in the kit. You can just make some simple organic wax blends first, so you get an understanding of what the waxes can do for you, which is one thing you do need to learn when you're doing this, okay? So you have that option, and you can always buy and top up those individual waxes through the AutoGlanz site, because they're selling everything individually, as I've said. Right, so this product is right up my street, guys. You know, I do a little bit of this. The channel's done a fair amount of this. I really like to get my hands on the product, using it, and I'm going to now be, you know, testing this. This is like the first step, because now what you've got to now do is kind of play around with the formula and start seeing what you can get out of the durability, you know, the durability polymer. How much can that deliver you in terms of how long the wax will last, you know, which is one of the criticisms of kind of, you know, natural wax backbone products, if you like, or organic wax products. So there's 1,000,001 things, roads to explore after you get this kit. I'm interested to see what formulas they put out there next and what those formulas are offering. I'm interested to see what other people that go and buy the kit think of it and kind of what they get out of it and how they go about testing it and changing the formula. So there's some complex things there, but these are the fun things of wax making. So if you're a car enthusiast and you like the look of this and you kind of think, oh, I want to have a go, do it, okay? Do it. It's cheap. I've spent thousands of pounds, or maybe under 1,000. I don't know, it must be close to £1,000 on getting to where I've got. And with the cost of this kit at 50 quid, and then a couple of the electric wax heaters, or even getting the Hotplate Stirrer, which is a bit more of an investment, a couple of £100 quid. The rest of the stuff you can buy on eBay, you know, it's all dirt cheap. The scale's £4 quid, you know, the lab equipment you can get all quite cheap, the stirrers and the goggles and all that. So your outlay to get into wax making and actually produce a kind of decent wax at home could potentially be less than 100 quid. And that's pretty good for hobbies. You know, hobbies are never cheap, but that is cheap. So the main benefit that I can see of this homebrew kit is it's accelerating you into what you can produce, okay? And the disadvantage is it might be accelerating you too quickly, but that's down to you. Like I say, you can take a step back. You could just use the waxes with the solvents and a natural carrier oil. You could experiment with those and start with an organic wax. So you could, I think most people that buy it will want to see exactly what it can do and go full throttle with all these synthetic additives rather than doing an organic blend. But it's important that you do those organic blends to understand the limitations of them, but also understand what these individual waxes are giving to you and how to blend them, okay? And the irony is when you start using the synthetic additives and the ones that are included in this kit, the way you use the waxes and balance the waxes changes, okay? So that's why it might be a good idea to start with their suggested formula at first and get involved. Reach out on Facebook, connect to the AutoGlanz page, have a look at their guide on their AutoGlanz website of how to make it. Talk to other people that make this. Try and learn as much as you can from other people that are willing to help you. And the most important thing when you're doing this sort of stuff, guys, it's a hobby, okay? So have fun with it, you know, enjoy it. You know, take your time with it and don't rush, and just get as much as you can out of making the wax, which is really important. Okay, thank you very much for tuning into the Forensics Detailing channel on this video featuring the AutoGlanz Homebrew wax making kit. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon for more detailing content.